record. All right. And we will post these. We created a YouTube channel for these meetings so that anybody who misses them can go back and catch up on what we discussed in the meeting. Coming up next in our agenda, we have an announcement that there is an upcoming 2-day amateur ham radio technician license class via Zoom, and that is taking place on March 20th through the 21st. And I will send out these meeting notes to everybody as well. So anything that's written here, you'll get an email. So those are taking place from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And if you'd like to register for that class, it is free, and you just have to contact Scott Rosenfeld either by phone or email. Which leads us into, does anybody have any questions about the ham class offering? Yeah.
You don't have to have the equipment for this class, or do you know anything about that?
That is correct.
This is Kathy.
I would recommend studying ahead if you really want to take the test when you, at the end of the class, though. I didn't know anything about it, and I had to stay up all night to barely pass. Don't expect to go there and just be spoon-fed at all.
No.
Although it's a great class, it's really worth it. Yeah.
I took the class, this is Catherine, but it took me 3 weeks of studying afterwards.
Yeah.
to be ready to take the test, and that was daily studying.
There's a lot of free aids all over the net to study with.
Jerry, yep.
Yeah, so there's a website called Ham Test Online, and I think it's only about $20 or so, but it'll lead you through all 120 questions, and you can review them and retake it and do that as often as you want until you have them basically memorized. And what it does is after each section, it gives you an exam so you can keep practicing. So there's 120 questions, and I believe they randomly pick 35 of them for every exam. And so it's really a question of rote memorization. I would, of course, be available if anybody has any questions, if there's something you don't understand.
So this is designed to be the curriculum that would enable you to take the exam, presumably, but I'm gathering that that's not a given. So that's the expectation here, is that you could take the exam after taking your class.
If you know a lot of electronics and know the difference between a cathode and an anode and a transistor and what all those things do, otherwise don't expect to take the test.
Right. And you're not expected to own the equipment. This was the original question. Is that correct? Okay.
No.
Great. Okay, thanks.
No.
Thank
In
you.
fact, most people take the test and then they go out and buy the equipment. So there's nothing particular to any radio except for the allowable frequencies. With the technician license, you're only allowed to use certain frequencies. So that's the type of thing.
Okay. Thanks.
Awesome. So that kind of leads us into our next topic, which we have on the agenda, which is the communications field day that is being planned by a couple of the members on this team. So if anybody who's involved in planning that would like to give a brief overview of the event and let people know what you have in the works.
Glad to do it. Matt's been a great help on this. And Dwight, is Dwight here tonight? He's volunteered, but I don't see him here. So there's basically 3 parts to the field day. In the first part, you will bring your radios and your instruction manuals, and we'll meet up. And it looks like the Grange has been kind enough to let us use their parking lot, and that's where we will meet. And what we'll do is go over the use of your either ham radio or FRS radio and set it up and get ready to use. Then there's a part that may or may not be needed, and part 2, where I want you to walk away with your FRS radio and just see how far you can communicate, because it's very important you understand the limitations of the FRS radio. Matt has tested this before, and apparently it's about 2 blocks,
No, more like a mile.
about a mile.
About a mile.
Cool. So maybe get in your car and go out and drive away and at least get a feel for it and let you hear what losing the signal is. It's more of an experiential type thing.
As long as you remember to get out of the car, because the car shields the radio waves.
Right. Right. And then in part 3, we'll actually go through a simulated emergency. We'll assign roles to everybody and let you go out and play and pretend that you have some sort of emergency. Somebody might need a roll of police tape to block something off. Somebody might need to a emergent, you need an ambulance to a certain location. So that's the kind of thing we're looking forward to doing.
Sounds great.
What I would need from everybody is if they could send, I guess you can send it to the listserv, and please express your desire to come, what type of equipment you will have with you. So that will determine the roles that we will assign to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Approximately when will this occur?
I'm sorry. We're looking in June. The Grange will be opening their doors to allow events in June. So we're talking about 3 months away here.
And Jerry, is the intent that you have to have a radio to participate that day?
It would be nice if you did, either an FRS or a handheld radio or a remote operation. I'll be bringing my full rig and set it up, including a rock and a string to throw the antenna up in the tree, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, this coordinates very well with the neighborhood mapping, because in the vision, every neighborhood center would have a bunch of FRS radios to let people walk around and talk to their neighbors and things like that and report back to that center. Then that would talk to the central River Road operation, which would convey stuff to the city if we need it. So there definitely needs to be a hierarchy. Yeah, guess you had to.
Sorry, it could be very helpful to and fun to have a partner with you, even a youth to assist writing things down, helping maybe somebody else driving, helping carry things, keeping all your gear together. The buddy system it seems like a really good idea as well. Even if you don't have enough radios to separate, you can still go together as buddies, right, Jerry?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Incidents command. Actually, there's a whole bunch of forms that everybody will get. And if you are a scribe, if you're there are different forms that have been accepted by FEMA and OSHA, and we're going to actually have a practice using these forms.
Okay.
I wanted to ask another question that I think, Jerry, you may be the person with the most experience with this in this group. I don't know, but I've been talking with Jackie, and one of the things, I'm very visual, and so one of the things that I'm hoping this group can do is start taking our goals that the board agreed to and start creating some visuals as to what this will look like, what this effort called emergency preparedness will look like when it's ideally completed. And one of the things I don't have experience with, Jerry, is just what you're describing in the communication channels. Maybe that's the piece that would get us to this point where we could really see how we all interrelate. How does all this mapping interrelate? And this isn't the right time of the agenda to talk about that, but I would really like to leave this meeting with an understanding as to how all these pieces are meant to fold together.
Yeah, that's understandable. Hopefully the day out in the sunshine will bring that closer together. There is a good document. I'm not sure if I have it in a readable form, easy that I could present, that shows you the hierarchy. But the dream is that every, when we talk about mapping your neighborhood, we talk about having a central point where everybody in that neighborhood group would meet. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Then the helpers in that group would all talk together with FRS radios. Then somebody at that central point would talk with a ham radio to the River Road Neighborhood Organization over a UHF frequency, a 70 centimeters UHF frequency. That then would be conveyed to the city over, like with a regular ham radio, over the UHF frequencies. So that's why I think it was Misty who asked me about buying a radio. If you're going to buy a radio, make sure it has both the capabilities. It's called dual band, and you want both 2 meter and 70 centimeter bands. So that's basically 145 megahertz and 440 megahertz.
May need to talk to you outside of this meeting to get that more clear for me.
Okay, I'll be happy to, and it may come up at the meeting.
Yeah.
I'll have an example of a dual band handheld. They're called HT, handy talkie, that I'll bring with me. And believe me, with all the repeaters that we have up all over the valley here, you can get to pretty much anybody with those, on using those frequencies.
I have a question, Jerry. Is the intention that we'll actually be communicating with the emergency responders in our area, or is somebody going to pretend like they are the county or whoever?
We will pretend. I hadn't thought about escalating it up to the city. Is that something you would like to pursue? Maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to see that happen, for one.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know that they do test with the neighborhoods. It might be a good opportunity to get that interaction tested.
So I talked to, I'm sorry, the guy who has the manual. Let me get the manual out here. I showed it to you last week. Let's see if I can get it to show up. There it is. That doesn't help because I have notes out here. Andy Davis. And he said that normally you just go on their frequency and announce that this is a test. And they don't mind if you use the frequency, as long as you announce beforehand that this is a test that we're running. Okay. But Matt, could you talk to them, to the city, and see if they would be willing to participate?
I have not yet.
I said, could you? Would you do that?
I could try, sure.
Thank you. Good idea.
Yeah, those would be awesome. And I had another question that we added to the agenda of, we don't necessarily have to solve for it today, but how can we, and Thea already made the suggestion, but how can we make this event more kid friendly to encourage more youth to participate with us? Whether it's being helpers or just kind of partnering with somebody, you know, it all kind of depends on what the COVID state looks like at that point as well. But something to keep in mind as plans are coming up of how we can get them more interested in this event too.
I can, if I was the one hosting and not the Grange, I'd say we could have a barbecue going on with hot dogs for the kids and things like that, but that I'm not willing to expand it to do that because that's a lot of work.
Right.
I've tried those type of things before.
All right. Yep, so some things to keep in mind. So I think we have some good follow-ups out of that. And maybe we can create a form that gauges interest for people to let us know if they're interested in attending that event and what equipment they might have to start getting a head count for you, Jerry.
Yeah, that's the first important thing. You know, like for instance, I have 2 FRS and I have 3 ham radios, so I can loan people. So if you'd like to attend, but you don't necessarily want to buy stuff at this point, or you want to see how it goes before you buy something, there might be, I don't know about you, Matt, if you have extra stuff, but maybe we could loan some stuff.
I might.
Awesome. All right, any other questions on that communications field day? Cool. Well, I'm sure we'll have more information come out about that over the next couple of months. I'm excited for that one. All right, so that moves us into our next agenda item, which is a presentation from Tom of lessons of the 2020 wildfire season. So Tom, take it away.
Can you make me a co-host so I can do
I
a screen
assigned
share?
that at the beginning. Do you see a share screen, or do I have to make you the full host?
Let me see what my capabilities are. I'm a co-host. Excellent.
Awesome.
Okay. Let's see here. Shit. Excuse me. Just switch screens here. No. Excuse me. Okay. I need to make sure you're got the right screen. Let's see here.
Got it?
Yeah, now I see it.
Okay. I think we're ready. You see the one big picture?
We see your notes too.
Well,
You
let me
have to go
fix-
into presentation mode.
Yeah, I'm gotta
And then
switch.
we can go up to view options and then magnify ours.
Okay.
Oh, that looks good.
Okay. Well, let's get going. Thank you very much. Some of you have probably already seen this, Ed. But maybe I'll try and put a new twist on it. But what this is, I cut down the original presentation quite a bit to leave time for discussion. So this presentation is presented by the Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition. It came out of the Neighborhood Leaders Council. So several of us on the board got together and said, we need to do something about these wildfires. And knowing that the holiday farm fire came really dangerously close to Springfield. And so we met and we came up with several ideas. We want to provide education to the community. We want to engage in some activity with Eugene Springfield Fire Department and other agencies. And so create a coalition between government agencies, neighborhood associations, perhaps other nonprofits. So that's our goal, is to provide education and some organization within the neighborhood. So in this, there's lots of pictures of fire. There's some graphs and things, but mainly what we want to do is draw out some lessons from the Holiday Farm fire. So here we go. This is a picture of the western states, including Idaho. It shows how many wildfires took place in 2020. Many of the fires, well, I can just say that in California, Oregon, and Washington, they had the largest fires on record, much higher than previous years. I have one comparison, well, several comparison, but it just shows this is this was an unprecedented year, but it probably is a trend and becoming more and more a new normal of wildfire. And I think most of us in the coalition think that wildfire is probably, if not the major risk to our community, it's one of the top ones because of the trend of wildfires. So this is a picture of Oregon in 2020 in September. There was over 1.2 million acres burned in Oregon, 4,000 homes burned, 40,000 people were evacuated, and 11 people died in these fires. And again, this is unprecedented fire events. This is a satellite photo of the fires on September 8th. And the point of this is to look at the major fires. I don't know if you can see, well, I'll go over here. The Riverside fire was directly southeast of Portland. The Lion's Head and the Beachy Creek fire were east of Salem. The Holiday Farm fire was east, incredibly close to Springfield and Eugene. The Archie fire was incredibly close to due east of Roseville. And you probably all know the Alameda fire, which burned through Talent and Phoenix. So again, had the extreme winds continued, these fires, certainly the Holiday Farm fire, but many of these other fires could have entered major metropolitan areas and caused tremendous damage. So this is the Holiday Farm fire. It started in Blue River. Most of you folks know this stuff. It traveled 22 miles past Vida in 13 hours. It came within 14 miles of Springfield. And again, had it continued, had those easterly winds continued, it would have, could have entered Springfield and blown through Springfield into Eugene. And so the Holiday Farm fire burned 173,000 acres. So this is an important slide. The red areas show the high hazard fuel areas in and around Eugene. So you can see that Eugene is circled in high fire areas. And a lot of people think, well, I live out here in the flatlands and there's no chance of wildfire entering here. But this area here is all grasslands, and grass is like, gasoline growing on the end of a shaft. It's very flammable, and with high winds, it creates an extremely high heat, and burns extremely fast. But in the South Hills, there is tremendous amount of built up fuel, and the Thurston Hills, if you go hiking through there, it is just a mess. There's so much fire fuel. If this ever got ignited, it could enter Springfield and Eugene. So here's a map showing, this is the Holiday Farm fire last year. And all these other blue areas are historic fires starting in 2003. But as you can see, all of them put together didn't even come close to the acreage burned of the Holiday Farm fire. So, so these easterly driven fires, firestorms, many of you may know about how they operate, but they're driven by high winds that pick up embers from the fire and blow them miles ahead of the main fire and ignite additional fires. And so these type of fires can get out of control and overwhelm the community and the fire department very quickly. You know, examples of this, we've all heard of Paradise. It was the same kind of fire. The Oakland Hills fire and many other fires are these caused by these easterly winds that drive the fire right through a community, and it's difficult to escape. And so I'll just say that these easterly winds are becoming more frequent. The one in September 8th last year was all across California and Oregon up into Washington, was driven by this easterly wind. So this picture is of a house on fire, of course. People don't realize how flammable a house is. It's really primarily made of wood and petroleum products. The whole roof is petroleum. And it is extremely flammable, and especially flammable if it's driven by high winds. And it can increase in temperatures to like 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So what can happen in a wind-driven fire is what happened. This is a fire that took place in California. It's similar to the fires that took place in Talent and Springfield, where the wind drives the fire right through a neighborhood and each house ignites the next house. So this is a picture of Talent at the beginning of the fire. It started as a very small grass fire in Ashland. It quickly got out of control because of the winds, and the embers blew into Talent and Phoenix, and it burned 2,800 homes in Talent and in Phoenix. And this is a picture of the aftermath of Talent.
Oh man.
So some controversy about what's causing these wildfires, but people who are deep into the wildfire science know that these wildfires are driven partly and primarily by climate change, that our planet is getting warmer. The graph on the left shows the atmospheric CO2 levels starting at 1960, and by 2020 it has increased over 100 parts per million. And we all know that greenhouse gases are the gas that keeps our planet nice and warm and toasty. But if that concentration increases, which it is now, the planet gets hotter, and that's what's happening. This graph on the upper right shows the 10 hottest years on record. 2019 was the hottest year on record. Well, 2016 was. And then 2020 was right in neck and neck in terms of the temperature, and it's in the average world temperature, and they have some calculation to produce that figure. But even with the with COVID 19, our CO2 output was decreased by 10%, but it still was the worst year, hottest year on record. This this graph shows precipitation. So precipitation is beginning to decrease in Oregon. And it's hard to really read this graph, but it does show the trajectory. And this is what's happening to our forests. They're becoming drier. The winters are not as cold, so pests are not killed off. So bark beetles and other pests are infecting our trees. And so we're having major die-off of trees in our forest, which increases the likelihood of wildfire. So again, this is NASA just put out well, they put it out a few months ago that 2020 was tied as the hottest year on record with 2016. So this is a graph of fires and in Oregon starting in 2020, where wildfires were not really controlled. There was a major fire in Idaho that burned something like 3 million acres and killed a lot of people. And so the Department of Forestry, Congress enacted the U.S. Forest Service and dramatically increased their budget. They gave them all sorts of resources, airplanes and big mechanical vehicles to help suppress fire. So this whole period up until like 1980, where there was major fire suppression, and basically any fire was considered a risk and extinguished. But what was not considered is that fire is a part of our environment. Native people recognized this and actually used fire to keep the forest healthy, and they would ignite fires periodically to decrease the fuel on the ground, which if it ignites, can ignite the trees if the trees are not properly cared for. And I don't know if you've seen pictures of Eugene in the 1800s, but Eugene was this oak savanna that basically was created by native people. So our efforts of extinguishing fire has backfired in a couple ways. That today, with less hotter climate and starting in the 90s and up into present day, it's hotter climate, drier climate, more unpredictable weather. So fires are getting out of control. We don't have the capacity to control wildfires as we did, because in the middle of the 20th century, there was much more precipitation, which really aided firefighters in putting out wildfires. So we have a problem where we've built up lots of structures and homes in nice, beautiful wooded areas. There's a tremendous amount of fuel in those areas, and these homes are at risk. So I think I'll stop here, and we could talk about, I could talk about what we are doing as a coalition, open to questions, statements, anything is fine with me. Do you want to start with questions, or would you like me to talk a little bit about what the coalition, the Wildfire Coalition, is doing?
I'd like to make a statement and just to express a compliment. I've seen this presentation before. It is so hard hitting for me. I was in the Paradise Fire, and I have found it was so terrifying this last summer to be confronted with so many of the signs and then the fire on our doorstep. And I have found that a number of people I've talked to here seem to feel a false sense of security, that they're in an area they don't believe will be the subject of an uncontrolled wildfire because it's more urban. And your presentation does such a good job of, I think, underscoring the risk. And I really want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for, yeah, it's really to not shock people, but to really bring attention to the threat. And I was very close to the fire in Paradise. At the time I was living in Grass Valley, but I was in the Bay Area during the Oakland Berkeley fire and saw it sweep through and burn 4,500 homes. And I can tell you that we are definitely not prepared, but that's the goal of our coalition, is to really get the neighborhoods involved in reducing the fire fuel, working with the fire departments and other agencies. So any other questions? And I could talk a little bit about what we're doing as the coalition. And
Yeah, I would like to hear about steps people take, or the way that you might be approaching talking to folks, mostly in an urban setting. I think a lot of the rural landowners have been informed about fire breaks and things like that around their homes, and how to prepare their property. But in urban areas, I'm just kind of wondering, what can you do? I don't have big trees on my property, but my neighbors do. And to tell you the truth, I value those trees for their shade considerably. They make my house much more livable. And so the rural thing where you just cut everything down for 50 feet around your house is just not going to work in an urban setting.
well, there's quite a few things you can do. And it's true, you know, our neighbors are 10, 20 feet away from us. And so, and they may have lots of trees and shrubs, and, you know, ones that are particularly flammable. When I moved into this house, there's a whole row of bamboo right next to the house, super flammable, but we're taking measures to deal with that. But so, you know, you don't have to cut trees down, but you want to prune them up about 20 feet to remove the possibility of the surface fire igniting a whole tree. Then a tree puts out a lot of radiant heat and can ignite everything in the area. So that's one. But you know, you can plant fire resistant plants that are relatively close to your house. And we're working with Oregon State University Extension to put out that kind of information about which plants are more preferable and more fire resistant, that you want to have kind of close to your house. There are other things. Many of us, including myself, has a fence that goes around the yard and comes right to the house. And a fence is like a flame catcher. They easily ignite. They're nice and dry, and a lot of them have been painted with preservatives, which is petroleum. and they burn right up to your house and ignite your house. So a lot of times what firefighters will do when they're have the time is they'll come up to your house and knock down a part of your fence that connects to your house. Or if you have a gate, you know, and you have to leave, you want to leave your gate open. But they're really recommending non-combustible fencing that goes up close to your house. And then there's just so many things you can do. Many fires are started by embers entering your attic, and you have vents in your attic, and you can put fine screen on your attic. You can paint it with a type of paint that bubbles up when it's under heat and prevents embers from coming into your attic. Depending on, you know, if you have trees above your house and you have skylights, you can put you can have a metal cover just that goes over the skylight, because the radiant heat can go right through that into your house and ignite the inside of your house. So that's a whole science of what one can do. And I can tell you probably our next fire forum will be exactly about things that homeowners can do to prevent a fire in the and you know, I personally think the next wave is external fire suppression systems, sprinklers on your roof. There's a whole science to that, because you may not have water or power in a fire. So
I'd like to
anyway,
Thank you.
make a quick comment. Great presentation, very good presentation. I hope you don't mind. I took screen grabs, a bunch of those. You probably don't mind. But Tom, what is your opinion on the value of a like a standing seam metal roof on top of a house?
well, that's considered an A-class roof. Both ceramic and metal roofs are very fire resistant. Most of us have comp shingles. They have some fire resistance, but they're basically felt paper soaked in petroleum with some gravel on top, fine gravel. So under, you know, embers can blow up under there, and if they're wind driven, they can ignite your roof. So metal is definitely much more fire resistant. And then, you know, it's expensive, but things like Hardyback siding, there are cement based sidings that look like wood, and there are legislation that's in the works in Salem that is going to try and create funding for people to redo their siding and make their house what they call harden your house to fire, which is mainly hard siding and a class A roof. So, yeah. Thea, you had a question or statement? You're muted.
I wanted to say that there's things that renters can do if you don't own your home, and in an urban setting where there's the 5-foot distance, that's very important. The home ignition zone, where you can just, you know, make sure the leaves and any mulch is away from your house if it's not kept wet all the time. And of course, cleaning the gutters, things that maybe your landlord may not do that renters can do. And we have some playlists of videos through the Wildfire Coalition. One is dedicated to fuel mitigation and defensible space, and another one is home hardening, and a whole variety of things that people teach on how to do. So those are available, and through the either the Facebook page or the website, or it's also on.
Yeah, can you put that in the chat?
No, I really am not able to access the links and all in the chat. I'm sorry. But if you go on YouTube and look for the Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition, they're all on that now. We got them posted finally. It doesn't represent any particular view or endorsement of any product or anything by the coalition. They're just being offered for educational value. Thank you, Tom. Great presentation.
I just wanted to throw in as an aside, fire in a neighborhood is a sudden thing, and like you say, most folks don't consider it an ongoing problem. I worked in landscaping and gardening for many years, and it's always a good idea to keep any plant material from touching your house. Plants breathe out, and the particular chemical mix of their breathing out tends to cause rot in most building materials. So a well-designed yard, doesn't have to look like a parking lot, defensible space, just design in that space away from the house with the vegetation to begin with. So it's a good thing to remember, because wet, mold, and rot is a continuous threat to our house. So
I can tell you just briefly what the coalition is doing, and then I don't know if I'm over my time. You let me know, Jackie, if I'm running over.
Yeah, I think we had some flexibility in the schedule tonight, so feel free. I'd like to hear what's going on.
Okay, so we have been busy. We've submitted three grant proposals. One has been through the ODF, Oregon Department of Forestry, that we're a part of a larger grant. We play a small role, but an important role. Finding homeowners who want to have the fuel reduced around their house and their trees and all that. And so there's some work going to be done by ODF and Northwest Youth Corps, mainly in the South Hills, but hopefully we're pushing to have it done throughout Eugene, because it's not just the South Hills that are at risk. There's a lot of fuel up in the South Hills, but there are other places in all of Eugene that needs to be treated. So we have another grant that we're waiting through the city to buy pruning tools, pole saws, and things like that. So with Oregon State University on producing videos on how to safely prune trees and not get clobbered by a big fat branch. And just so you know what kind of landscape is more fire resistant. So we will be producing that, working with them this year. And then we have a grant that we're crossing both fingers and toes, which is to provide fire fuel reduction for people who are low income, elderly, and disabled, who don't have the resources to reduce that fuel. So that's through the Oregon Community Foundation. We'll see. They gave us a little half thumbs up, but it's a pretty rigorous, a lot of competition for that funding. But so that's just one thing, but we're talking to legislators about legislation that is going to create funding to do fuel reduction and property hardening. We're meeting with Eugene Springfield Fire this week, and we're going to talk about that grant, which we're all a party of, but we're talking about evacuation and letting people know about evacuation routes, and perhaps doing evacuation drills, possibly coordinate, but people need to practice this so they know how to operate. Because if they say, leave your house, if they told Eugene, evacuate 170,000 people on the freeway on I-5 would be an utter mess. So that needs to be fine tuned. Emergency alert systems have lots of flaws. If you don't have a cell phone, or your cell phone's powered down, or many people up on the McKenzie River turned off their phones to save their batteries, didn't get any alerts. So there's needs to be a, it's challenging because there's, due to COVID-19, the money is tight with the city and county and state. And so it's a process that will, our municipalities, but our communities too need to go through. There really needs to be that this needs to be a priority. It's, again, I believe, probably one of the biggest risks to our neighborhoods, and we need to get a handle on it. So those are my thoughts. Yes,
Tom, so I think I'm on the list for note, and I'm very interested in what you talked about evacuations and all of what you talked about. So if I'm on that list, I'll be hearing about these things as they come up and can participate.
because it really is controlled by EMS and the fire department. So we are gently pushing to say, we need, people need to be informed of the protocols, how to prepare for evacuation, what to bring, all those sort of things. But where to go, in the South Hills, there's lots of dead ends and cul-de-sacs where you go down the wrong way, or you could be going right towards the fire. So it won't be us. It's just us kind of raising awareness and really trying to get the fire department to support doing neighborhood drills and getting people used to the idea. So yeah,
I guess what I was asking is that if any one of us wants to stay in the loop as this develops over time, one good step would be to be on your listserv.
Yes, we have a monster listserv, and so we send it out for all of our fire forums. And yeah, so anything, probably the next one will be about defensible space and decreasing fire ladders and hardening your property. So yeah, Jerry.
So I like your idea of the evacuation plan. If I were asked to evacuate, I have no idea which way to go, where to go. Should I go west to the coast? Should I go up the Beltway to 5? Are there evacuation plans?
The city and county have evacuation plans, which they shared with us.
Where do I see it?
I don't think they told the station, but for people to be much more aware of how to evacuate and when. And I know this last last September, we were ready to go. We had our car started looking about which way do we go? Do we go west? No, there's fire there. Do we go south? No. Do we go east? No. I mean, it was pretty interesting about how, you would have had to gone north for I forget the route, and then go east to get away from fires. Misty, I don't know if you have some thoughts on that. I saw you.
She has to go.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was just dropping in the chat. I know I missed out big time. I was really looking forward to being here and seeing all of you and catching up on all the amazing work that you're doing. And but yeah, alas, I have to go again. I have a meeting at 6 o'clock that's mandatory. Yeah, when you partner with state agencies, state government agencies, it's like you got to be, on their agenda and not on the other way around. So I am following closely. I had a good meeting with Jackie last night, and we were hoping to. Were you guys able to go around your homes and make a list of things that you wanted to collect?
No, No.
Okay, okay, yeah. That would have been like an idea of ours to take time to actually do that because we know that it's important. And it's always on the back burner, right? To have a plan or a list of things that are important that we want to grab during an emergency. We can't replace like grandma's painting, etc. So anyway, maybe for next meeting we can do that. I just want to say hello and I'm here and I'm excited about ham radios, the classes that are coming up that we'll send out the class information and let us know if you're interested. I know that there's a lot of you that are interested in the ham radio classes and certification. So the 21st and 22nd are the classes. So
20th and 21st.
21st?
20th
20 and
21st.
21st. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we'll send out more information on that. But yeah, I'm already late to my meeting and I miss you
Thanks,
guys.
Misty.
Thanks for all
And I
you
wish I
do.
could speak to what Tom
Thank
was
you.
talking about, but I have to go. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
You all have a great evening.
So I don't know if all of you would like to be on our listserv for future forums. We've had 3 and we're planning to have more. But I think the next one, like I said, is going to be about the things that we all can do and what the city and county's doing. And so anyways, Thea, did you have a thought?
Well, I just wanted to say that the best thing you can do for evacuation is get prepared and get the go bag. And as far as having a route, the reason we haven't got those routes distributed out of the fire department for years of requesting them through CERT and other things, and they were only distributed to the fire coalition because of the partnerships that Tom has carefully developed with the chief and others, is because they are incident dependent. They're totally flexible, and they don't want us thinking we have to go west when something's happening to the west and we actually need to go east. So that's the reasoning behind it. You know, there are a few ways out of the valley, but they could get congested really fast. The most important thing is to know how to get out of your neighborhood, and that's what we want to focus on, is helping people understand their back streets and all. When Civic Stadium burned, the congestion around College Hill was just terrible because nobody knew how to get across the hill. They were just used to going up and down Willamette or Amazon or, you know, a few of the cross streets and not all the little ways to get around. So mapping that is one of the things that the coalition is helping neighborhoods to do.
Yeah,
Chelsea or
thank you.
Chelsea?
You know, having lived in the Paradise area, one of the things that they did really well, because they knew they were in a terrible position, very vulnerable to fire, and there were fire preparedness or safety council meetings all the time. I mean, at least once, multiple times a month, probably in different areas. They had elaborate maps showing routes out. They really, and it was about educating the people, not withholding information. And of course, we knew that it would depend on where the fire was, et cetera. And there was this network of communication and zones and meeting places and so on. What happened in Paradise is that it was like a nuclear bomb went off, and none of that really came into play. But I think that education and preparedness, it got me out of my denial and starting to do go bags and so on. So I just love what you're doing, and any preparation you can help with evacuation and how to think that through. It needs to be transparent and second nature, honestly. You know, people need to practice this.
Yes, we
And-
don't have any zones. Paradise is one of the most, you know, prepared communities with its zone step layers and all the practicing. But none of that was able to be deployed because, one, they didn't think it was happening that fast, and 911 wasn't alerted that, yeah, it is happening. It's jumping the canyon. And
and even though it didn't get played out, It did help because it got, those of us who had gone to those meetings were more prepared. And we knew to leave. And we did the best we could, but if you're completely clueless or not organized at all, then you really don't have much of a chance if something like that occurs. So I just really hand it to you.
We have a radio team that would love to interview you sometime about what you experienced. John Q. Murray, he's with KEPW, and he loves getting these kind of personal stories. If I could send your email address to him, it could be really helpful for the coalition. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll also say that, like most organizations, non-volunteer, it's a small group of us doing a whole lot of work. And I would propose, Charles, that you
Get involved.
get involved, because we need more people who really know this stuff and can speak from their heart and experience. And it applies to anybody. If you have time, we definitely can use some more hands in the work. So
I would be happy to do that. Thank you.
Great.
For saying that.
Well, if there's no other thoughts, I'm going to go have dinner.
Awesome. We really appreciate you joining, Tom. That was a really good presentation, and I think kicks us off for a lot of good conversations that I think we need to have here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate meeting you all, and hope to see you again.
Do we know how we're going to get on your list?
Sure.
I would suggest maybe telling Jackie if you want to be on our listserv, and Jackie, gets your email and sends them to us, and we'll put them on. And so we have kind of membership meetings, and then we have forums. So there's a lot going on, but if you want to get involved, we definitely need more hands. And but if you want to just attend our next forum, just perhaps Jackie can send me your email, and I'll put you on the list.
Thank you.
Thank you. You all have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye.
All right. So that takes us up to kind of our last agenda item for this evening, which is really an open discussion about what is the vision or roadmap for our neighborhood emergency preparedness plan. This group has kind of been meeting off and on for the last couple of months, but people really started participating just in our last February meeting. So we'd like to know what you want to get out of these meetings every month. Our plan is to meet monthly, but we want to know what you'd like to see. What kind of content would you like to see here? Would you like us to hold trainings during this time? Would you like us to try to bring in guest speakers? I also want to point out, don't forget that the knowledge that you already have is very valuable for other neighbors. So there are things that probably all of us are doing in our individual lives to be more prepared that somebody else may never think of. So I always want our neighbors to share with each other what they might be up to, even if they don't think it's anything spectacular. Somebody else might not be thinking of that. So yeah, Thea?
I'm kind of an interloper here, but a nearby neighbor. And I forgot to also introduce myself as a steering committee member of the Eugene Preparedness Neighborhood Network in Penn. It's another committee of the NLC, just as the Wildfire Coalition is, which used to be under NPEN. And the neighborhood network is interested in connecting with emergency preparedness teams in each neighborhood, or helping develop them and be a resource. And we have a website we're starting to build. And we're, with all sorts of ways to calendar and ways we can share resources and stay connected. And we're going to be sending out an invite to all the neighborhood chairs to appoint a delegate, at least one, to this neighborhood network for its meetings in case we need to take any votes, but anybody can attend. So The other steering committee members are Randy Prince and Don Matheny of Amazon and Southeast Hills, and very active in the past. And we're also interested in assisting with Map Your Neighborhood groups or anything like that. Safety circles is another easier way to look at forming something like that. So I want to throw that out there. We'd love to have, if anybody's interested in being a representative from your neighborhood, please contact your chair, because they will be getting this invite soon to appoint someone. Jan?
Yeah, one thing, it's really great to see so many people making reference to the neighborhood organizations. This is just one of the greatest, awesome tools that Eugene has as a city, is having a neighborhood program. And whoever participates helps set the agenda, and if resilience and preparedness are part of the agenda, it goes out to a much wider audience, of course. I want to mention, I put a good bit of content over into the chat, and all of this information here. My approach to preparedness and resilience is perhaps a little more proactive. I thought it was an awesome presentation. We need to reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, that's driving climate change, and all the suburban development that's just not being, it's in the wrong place. South Eugene is a disaster waiting to happen. But what I would like to see, I would offer doing a presentation for the group here in regard to reducing ecological footprints, living more within what the planet can put up with in terms of energy, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of transforming a suburban property to grow more food, produce energy, collect rainwater, repurpose automobile space, all those actions which I've done in my own place here help reduce ecological footprints, are a great model, for other neighbors. We have a small but appreciable number of homes here in River Road and in different parts of Eugene as well, practicing what we'd like to call suburban permaculture to reduce eco footprints and produce more of our needs closer to home, which of course is an awesome preparedness action to take. So if you don't know, you can actually save on your own desktop the chat. You can save that to your own desktop. And these presentations here that I've made, and then we have these conversations coming up in coming weeks, are all about different people in different parts of the country taking action for reducing ecological footprints, building communities, and building culture and economy that better fits within what the planet can put up with, because we're headed in the wrong direction. Thanks, Joe Biden, but it's got to go way beyond that. So again, I offer to do a presentation at some time, about suburban permaculture, and that could go something, Thea, you might be interested for your network as well.
Yeah, sounds great. I have a good friend who's been very involved with an eco village in Port Townsend, a mindfulness one. And they did a nice documentary on that this month. I'd love to see more of what you're doing. That sounds like a great idea.
One of the items here is a video tour of my place.
Yeah.
Which shows what I've been doing here. Yeah, Port Townsend's a pretty cool town. There's a lot of neat stuff in Port Townsend. Yeah.
Awesome.
So what about the neighborhood? I just wanted to announce the network's available to hook into, and we're hoping to be of assistance.
I'd like to have your contact information, Thea. I don't know if you can put that in the chat, but I'd like to chat with you more about that.
I could do that. I just can't do links right now. Thank you. I've been on another Zoom with Scott of the Ham group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jerry?
So, I'm not muted, good. So I'm new to the area, right? Is there such a thing as a River Road community building?
More or less. The what is it called?
Was it the annex?
The swimming pool.
Oh, the park.
Echo
The
Hollow.
River Road Parks.
Yeah,
Oh.
River Road Park thereabouts. That's it.
Where is that located?
Emerald Park.
Emerald Park.
Let me write that down because
But otherwise, we do have a building over off of River Road next to Tio Pepe's Mexican restaurant that we used to hold the meetings at prior to going on Zoom, the River Road Annex.
and where is that, Andrew?
That's on like Hilliard and River Road. There's like I think there's a burrito boy on one side and a little car dealership, and on the other side is Tio Pepe's Mexican restaurant.
Hillcrest and River Road.
Okay, so because what would be nice as far as a preparation, and it's not too expensive, is if we could put a ham radio antenna up on a building somewhere, and that will be considered the River Road Network Operations Center.
Preferably somewhere near the geographic center of its allotted space, so that there's.
Sure, I mean, I agree, but trying to find a place.
Great idea. I would suggest that you talk with Kathy Castellano at River Road Park District.
Who?
Kathy Castellano. She's a good friend and she's sort of number two. There's going to be a new director, but Kathy's been there for ages and she is very good to work with.
Okay, Kathy, and what's the organization?
This is the River Road Park and Recreation District. You know, River Road has its own park district,
Okay,
and that's at Emerald Park.
I'll have to find where Emerald Park is, but I can do that.
On Lake Drive. Yeah, you can find it.
See, I'm new to the area, so when you say Lake
oh,
Drive, I have no idea.
It's an important place, and just so you know, they are eager to provide places for community groups to meet also, other than the COVID, you know, because we've had lots of events there over the years. They're very accommodating.
So you can put up a VHF, UHF, really cheap. I mean, it doesn't take much to put that antenna up on the roof and run the wire into a place where, so in the case of a real emergency, the comm group could go there. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure she'd be glad to hear about it. I have no idea what she would respond, but.
Okay, I've got it written down and I will attempt to call her tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a great person.
Thanks.
All right. Did anybody else, did I miss any other hands out there?
I think that's a great idea, and to have a comm station at River Road. I'm sure you all must have talked about it before.
I've not heard it mentioned before, or that we didn't even have one. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Andy Davis of the CERT Steering Committee Chair, he's working on possibly on doing that in the neighborhoods. And one idea is with the churches. There is a church that's interested in providing that because that's a natural gathering place in times of emergencies quite often. So yeah, it can be a really good thing to do. And I encourage Jerry to work with Andy, because I'm sure he will. Yeah.
Because basically, right now, what I have is a rock and a string and a roll-up antenna. And that's what I was
kidding.
No, it works. It's the best thing, actually, for portability, emergencies. Matt could address that a lot more, I'm sure.
There's a guy in Sunnyvale, California, that actually, it's called Ed's Antenna. And he makes this, he makes his what's called a J-pole antenna. I'm using one as a major end for my major UHF VHF, but he also makes a roll up. And then you can go to the climbing store over on 11th, and I bought a rock and a string. It's a little bag type of thing. I can use to throw over a limb and haul up my portable antenna.
Matt, what can you add to that?
I did the same thing. I think I inspired Jerry to do exactly that.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's the one who turned me on to the place.
Yeah, I thought so.
So
And Matt's got quite a bit of knowledge. You're really lucky to have him involved if he can stay so.
So if you had a major antenna down at River Road, would you want, Matt, you talked that there's a communications plan already, which I don't know anything about. But would it also like you have, so you want an antenna on top of one of the churches out at River Road Extended, or has there, how far away, or, you know, any insight on what we really want?
I prefer the park with the swimming pool because it's in the very near the geographic center of its allotted boundaries.
And that would take care of most of the Northwest.
It would take care of the River Road area.
It's also on city property, and it might be more accessible through city and emergency manager, possibly.
Has anyone seen this
Oh
chart?
yeah, work with it all the time.
The swimming pool is in the geographic center of River Road there.
Your volume's a little low, Matt. Is there any way to turn that up?
Okay, let me see. Right where my finger is. Where are we? The swimming pool is in the geographic center of the River Road area. Okay? So I recommend.
The thing we need to look for is a room with an area with an external entrance that they would be willing to give us a key. So God forbid they're not available. I don't want to be sitting there or breaking into
for someone with a, to show up with a key, and you can't call them because the cell phones are out, right?
Right.
That kind of, yeah.
But churches could be a lot more accessible in that regard. Yeah.
And even though, like, I've suggested the Grange, but that's way far north from a lot of people who live down by River Road and Northwest Expressway down at that end of River Road.
Yeah, those are all good things to brainstorm for sure. So those are really good ideas, which the communications team is, team's not the right word, whatever you want to call. The people who are interested in communications, you guys are working on a lot of that stuff. Are there any other trainings or types of content sharing that you would like to see brought to this meeting? Yes, Jerry.
As soon as COVID is over, or we're allowed to, I think we ought to offer a first aid course for everybody in the group.
Let's do that.
Yeah, first aid is definitely something of high interest. I know Ron was working on contacting some locations and securing some information for us. But I think that was still ongoing the last time I checked with him, but that is definitely high interest in the neighborhood. Yeah.
It's difficult right now with COVID, but there's something online that can be really helpful through FEMA. It's called You Are the Help Until the Help Arrives. And it's a shorter version of Stop the Bleed. It's what you do at the very beginning. And you can go online to FEMA, look that up, and go through the steps to become a small group facilitator. Very easy. And then hold your course online for others to attend, or just watch the video. It's extremely helpful. I've been delayed in doing that for our Map Your Neighborhood groups because of other things going on with MCOMs in our neighborhood. And I wanted to say, if Jen's still around, the neighborhood framework is extremely helpful because of Southeast Eugene and Friendly area getting neighborhood matching grants for radio equipment several years in a row, $5,000 grants. They're there. You can apply for them and show your need and get it get funded.
Explain, Thea, explain what a neighborhood grant is.
A neighborhood matching grant is through the city of Eugene for recognized neighborhood groups for any number of projects. They're giving them out for murals, for all sorts of beautification or organization projects. And you just have to find volunteers willing to pledge a certain amount of hours at the going rate now is $27.20 an hour for volunteer labor to equal that $5,000. And we pledged it in, what was it, November for our first radio grant that we got authorized like December 1st. And we've already met our pledges by February, even though the grant is through June for our $5,000 of radio equipment, which beefed out our neighborhood network, our MCOMs, because we had the College Hill in the obstruction in the middle of our neighborhood. We needed a lot more higher powered GMRS radios to get around that. We also got a ham base station, but we followed Southeast Eugene's model on all of this, and the other neighborhoods are there ready to stand by and help and assist. And these grants applications are there to download, and we took their template and just filled it in with our information. And it took a long time actually of trying to get exactly what we wanted together. With a lot, because we were very specific, but anyway, you have to complete your whatever you say you're going to do in your project within the 6-month period of the time allotment. For us, it was just distributing 20 pairs of FRS and 5 GMRS and 1 ham base station and getting those out and up and running. And that's still ongoing actually, but we have a lot of interest and got a lot of volunteers into it, and have our second Sunday at 6 exercises going, which we modeled after Southeast second Sunday at 7 exercises. And it will be really fun someday to try to do more second Sundays at 6, 7, 8 or 5 and see who can, but you have to stay on different channels and practice your FRS to know how to work them. I don't know if that really explains the grants, but the city of Eugene has a whole page on them and what the criteria are and how to fill out the application. So you could do it anytime.
Okay, definitely something to look more into. And I didn't notice that Ron had joined us. Ron, is there anything you want to add to that?
Hi. Yeah, sure. So I have been researching and trying to find a venue for in-person, but also I was going to connect with Jan at some point and talk about ways to try to do some virtual trainings, maybe during the weeknights. My weekends are pretty full, but I could probably get something, do a 45-minute kind of review of, it sounds like first aid is kind of a priority. So I can come up with some things that, we could just offer some free type of training, kind of an overview of a first aid.
There you go.
Yeah. Do you have a question for him, Jerry?
Yeah, Ron. So I know Lazaro contacted me and asked me to volunteer for the vaccinations, but it turns out that I couldn't because my first aid certificate had expired. And I know that for them, they require actual hands-on. You have to play, I don't know what you call the dummy, but you have to play with the dummy in reality. You can't just, there's several online courses you can take, but they wouldn't accept that. So until I get my first aid in reality, and bloodborne pathogens is another one everybody's all requiring now. There's not much I can do.
Okay. Yeah, and this would be kind of one that wouldn't be with certification or a cost. So I think what you mentioned would be something you'd need to get certified. And I'm working on those classes right now, trying to get some scheduled in the next month. Also going out into the summer as well, hopefully as the vaccine rolls out a little bit more, that COVID won't be as much of an issue.
Ron, can you please put your email in the chat? I'd like to contact you about that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Awesome, Ron. Well, thank you for that update. I know we are right at time right now, so I want to be mindful of everybody's schedule tonight. If anybody has topics that they like to share or feedback that you'd like to see in this meeting, please feel free to send that to me, and I will send out the meeting notes after this call as well, along with the meeting recording. And I think we have a lot of good follow-ups out of this meeting, especially connecting with the NPEN group to see how we can tap into that resource network that's already there and get rolling on some of the framework that's already been built for us. So thank you everybody for joining. And yeah, Charles.
Thank you, Jackie. This was an excellent meeting.
Yeah, great meeting. Thank you. And Jackie, you're a really good monitor.
Oh, thank you.
Super, super good.
Best.
Thank you
Quit
very
your
much.
day job is what we're telling you.
Not quite ready for that. All right, guys, I appreciate you all, and we'll all be in touch again soon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.